Let's start to look a little bit deeper into the draft command as part of an extrude. You can see here that I've created a sketch. It's located on my top plane. And if we look at that sketch, you can see it contains a center rectangle, which I've made into a square, a circle, and then I've also got a triangle. I use the polygon command in my sketching of these to be able to define a three-sided polygon. And I use the inscribed circle, but you can see we also have the option to do a circumscribed circle. So that's what I used in order to create our triangle there on the side. Now that I've got those three shapes, one of the things I want to show is that we can create drafts on extrudes that are multiple entities or multiple bodies that are going to be created as part of that. So I'll go ahead and move over into my Features toolbar to the Extrude Boss command. And one of the things that you'll notice is that the depth or the distance is already highlighted. It means I don't have to move my mouse cursor over there in order to give an input. I just simply type in 6 and enter and hit the preview will update showing us the distance or the depth that our extrusion is going to go. Now I can move down into the draft command. And as I mentioned in the previous section, anytime that we apply draft as part of an extrusion, all the faces are going to have the same draft angle applied. So in this case, 1 degree, and I'll move to a front view so that way we can see a little bit of the taper that's involved. If I move that to 15 degrees, 30 degrees, you can start to see that we're able to reach a point of convergence where all those tapered faces will make to a point, whether that be the 4-sided pyramid, 3-sided, or our cone. Green check mark there is going to show the results of those, all three of those. Now, one of the things that might not be the best advantage for this operation is that it is controlling the same draft angle on all three of those bodies. When I select on a feature, you'll notice that all of its dimensions are highlighted. The reason why that is I'm using the Instant 3D option. If I were to select out in space to clear my selections and clear Instant 3D or deselect it, now whenever I select on a dimension, you'll notice none of the dimensions are available when I select on a feature rather. But by using Instant 3D, not only am I able to see the dimensions, but I'm able to make dimensional changes by dragging on the dimensions. You'll notice the little toggle, the little blue spheres that are at the end of each of the dimensions. That allows me to be able to select that dimension and make changes by dragging that along. Again, that's a function of the Instant 3D entity. Now, if I drag out here in space, it doesn't have an increment. It's just a free drag. If I move my mouse cursor over the scale, I'm actually able to snap to the increments of the scale itself. That's part of the functionality of Instant 3D. So, particular to our draft angle here, selecting that, I'm able to make changes to the angle, and you can see that it's going to update each of the bodies. Depending on your design intent, this may be an advantage. Likewise, on your design intent, it may not be an advantage because you may want to control each of these bodies independently of one another. If that was the case, we would just simply extrude each of those sketch entities one at a time, like I've done here. You can see that I've got a boss for each one of those extruded members, and each one of those have their own draft angle. Switch over to a front view. I'm using the Control 1 in order to do that. I also could use the drop-down heads-up toolbar in order to be able to define which of these views I wanted to specify. And you can see that the view selector is turned on as well. That's an entity that allows you to be able to select faces and get a preview of those. Control 1 gives you a front view. Control 4 is a side. 5 is a top. So those are you'll see me use throughout the videos here. The different segments, I used a lot of those hotkeys for visualization control. Now back to my features. As I select each one of those, you can see that they've got a depth and they've got a draft angle. Notice how these dimensions show in blue. That's because they are feature dimensions. They're not part of the sketch, whereas the sketch dimensions show in black. There is a differentiation between what's controlled at the feature level and what's controlled at the sketch level. Just like I did a while ago, because I've got Instant 3D turned on, I'm able to make changes to the draft of each boss individually. But that's only because I extruded these as different boss features. Just like on the previous example, whenever I extrude all of the sketch entities together, I'm going to have the draft angle going to be defined for all of those faces with one dimension.